what I want to ask you now is basically, because you're a mental coach, right? And it probably overlaps a little bit with some sports psychology. And I was interested in what kind of technique do you actually use in game? So for instance, it's very common for athletes when they're lifting weights or when they're performing any sports to use self-talk, like internal cues to keep focus, to keep motivated. Is there any such thing that you guys use systematically? And maybe you can give one example or two or something.
Yeah, self-talk is actually really important for us as well. And when it comes to our esports players, the thing that we mainly work on when it comes to in-game is handling frustration. Once you make a mistake, how many mistakes can you actually make before you start losing focus and before you start losing that self-confidence? And that's where the self-talk actually comes to play. So what we do is actually in our individual sessions, we set up something that we call support routines, where we actually create a game plan for this player, where we actually go through, okay, when do you actually have difficulty with your own self-talk? Because self-talk to us is being constructive, having patience with yourself, but also continuously finding solutions instead of going into the negative aspects of talking to yourself.
That's correct.
So the reality that we talk to our players about is it's not going to be a matter of you handling a dip one time throughout a game. It's going to be a matter of you handling every single dip, because it's going to happen at a lot of different points throughout the game. So we create these support routines, which is basically a personal routine that you've prepared for yourself with personal, self-talk, equipment or tools, so to speak, where you can actually make sure that you get yourself back up once you start to dip, and continuously start doing this and do this throughout the game. So towards the end of the game, you're still there where you can compete at your very best.
Okay, wow. So I must imagine that you cannot just go and practice these strategies in tournament, right? You guys must have like a structured way of training these mental aspects the same way that you guys physically train throughout the year. So that routine that you speak about is probably built up in between tournaments, correct?
Yeah. When it comes to working on mental habits, obviously you have to do it a lot of times to actually make it work. And what we typically say is when you go to a tournament and you go to a real game, you sort of revert back to your old habits, right? So we want to create that habit before they actually get there. So once they're there, they can revert to these new habits instead. So it's something that we consciously work on, every single day. Where again, I might have team sessions with the players where we have certain focus areas that they work on as a team, where they can actually function together when it comes to communication, but also help each other actually get through these maybe rough periods of times throughout the game. But also with individual sessions where, I set up weekly goals with some of these players. Where one thing might be, okay, well, you're going to work on, positive self-talk throughout this whole week. What's your support routine going to be? So we set that up. How can you actually start visualizing how to get through those periods? Because a lot of times I found that, you set up a goal, you give the players tools to do it, and then you sort of let them go off by themselves. But I've sort of experienced that you have to go through the how as well and actually create a game plan with these players. So, okay, you have the knowledge, the awareness of what you have to do. You have a game plan, and now actually how are you going to work on this? And what are the specific situations that are really difficult for you? And how can you visualize yourself actually get through those with this new habit, with this new, support routine? It's basically practice like anything else. I mean, all the mental areas is just practicing and doing it over and over again until you actually get there what actually is sitting in your head.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It needs a training plan the same way training to recover from an injury or building muscle or building strength will need a training plan, right? You cannot just have a goal and just by thinking about it, hoping that you will make that habit, right? You have to work on it as well, as you mentioned.
Yep, exactly.
And then you also mentioned visualization, Jens. Is this a strategy that you also use, like aside of positive self-talk, which is the one that we just spoke about, or is there any other preferred strategy that go to?
Yeah, I mean, we try to use, and actually I try to introduce visualization as a tool to actually do preparation, because I think it's very effective. I mean, it's proven to be very effective within sports. I think there's quite a lot of, really good athletes that have used it and have used it effectively. And with us, it's no different. It's about being able to put yourself in those situations and sort of pre-program your brain to actually act in the way that you want it to act once you're in those situations. So it's sort of like familiarizing yourself with with these situations that you might not be comfortable with, and going through it over and over again until you feel, okay, now I actually know how to deal with it. And a second aspect to that we've started working on is something that I call target feeling. And it's because, confidence, to me, sort of the result of that, or the essence of confidence, is a feeling that you have inside.
Yeah, correct.
And a lot of times when you play, if you play the game with a confident feeling, which would then be the target feeling, you make decisions in a different way. You act on instinct. You trust yourself. So you're basically playing without that little hesitation that might get in the way at certain times when you actually are afraid or have low self-confidence. So I sort of try to incorporate that into the visualization of always being able to sort of call upon that feeling that you want to feel in a situation. So if you start losing your confidence in a game, get back to the feeling that you actually want to have, because that can kickstart you getting back into the game.
I was wondering, do you get a lot of pushback from players about this kind of vision, this kind of strategy? Do they open-handedly just accept it, or they're like, you know what, I've become professional because I was successful playing the game for numerous hours a day, and I don't need your help? Are you seeing a lot of confrontation?
It sort of depends on how you approach the team. I've done it in different ways. There's been teams where I've sort of taken a step-by-step approach, where I've very much incorporated the team into the decision-making and sort of started with, creating an awareness, sort of showing them where we're going, and then it becomes to us together making decisions on which steps that we are comfortable taking. But I've also taken the more extreme, sort of way with one of the teams that I worked with, where I just went in and said, okay, this is what's going to work. We're going to get up early. We're going to work out every single day. We're going to do, strength training one day. We're going to do conditioning the other day. We're going to do these sessions. We're just going to fast track everything. And that's where, after a while, even if it's effective, you don't get the players buy-in after a while.
Yeah, because there is no intrinsic motivation. They're not empowered to make the choice that they think okay.
So that's sort of what I had to learn the hard way. I mean, even if you're doing the right things, even if you're incorporating the things that might be very effective and work towards the end. And, interesting enough, with the team that I did that, we actually won quite a big tournament after after I think only working on it for 3 months, which is way quicker than the other teams. Yeah. But at the end of that time, they were so tired and so burned out, and I didn't get any buy-in on what we were doing, so it didn't end up working for the long run, which is what we're trying to do, right? So I mean, you have to be aware of that these players, especially the older players, they've done it in one way, only focusing on the game, and now here comes Yen saying, hey, it's better to do it this way. So you sort of have to meet them in halfway and sort of have to talk about, okay, we want to make these changes long run. What can we do today? What would you be comfortable? Would you be comfortable, working out every other day for say 30 minutes? Should we start with a walk? Is that where we're at right now? Can we start there and then ramp it up? And sort of making team decisions is where I found if you do that, it actually, you're able to take those small steps, but you have to be patient.
Yeah.
One part of me is okay, come on guys, let's just get this done. We know where we want to head. But then the other part is it's not going to work that way.
I mean, this sounds so much like Freeletics, for instance, because it is a two-way street, right? You have to know what makes a person tick. You have to educate him. He has to tell you what he wants. It's like a two-way street communication that always has to happen, and then you guys have to find a balance on which you have to build up on, right? So like at Freeletics, for instance, we have the coach. The coach tells you what to do, but we're also developing the app so that we can better get to know you and then give you something in return that will make you tick, that will make you stay long term, right? And at Freeletics, we have this motto, which is we're always going to try to push you to do the extra mile, right? So we're going to give you options to train without equipment, with equipment if you want. You can adapt your session. You can train anywhere because it's basically a digital coach in your pocket. So you can do it at home or in the gym or whatever. And I was wondering, like, if you guys have in Fnatic such a motto, like the extra mile, for instance, like how do you guys push yourself to break barriers that are in your way, for instance?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, you know, it's similar to what you guys are talking about. This, you know, this mentality of going the extra mile, which means basically doing whatever it takes to get where you want to get in my world, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So that's where sort of the holistic approach comes in, where I look at today, our esports players, are they actually willing to buy into doing these things around the game? Because that's actually what's going to make them the best player that they can possibly be. And to me, that's sort of like going the extra mile. You know, maybe one player is saying, okay, well, I'm willing to work as hard as I can within this area, within this box. But if I have to go outside of that, outside of my comfort zone, then no, I'm not willing to work that hard. And that to me is sort of like, then you're not willing to go the extra mile.
Okay.
And that's where we continuously try to work with our players to make them understand, okay, well, you know, the game itself, that's one aspect of what you have to do to become the best that you can be. And also to become the best in the long term that you can be. And consistently be the best that you can be. Because if you just short term want to be the best, you know, esports player that you can be, you can go and you can play all day, all night. And you can do that for maybe a short period of time and you're going to be effective. But after a while, you're going to burn out, right?
Yeah, you're going to crash for sure. Yeah.
So for us, it's more about how can we, you know, create a balance where you consistently take your steps forward and consistently become better and better and have a long, healthy career and actually, you know, are the best player over a long period of time. So that's to me where we're, you know, going the extra mile. The player that's actually willing to get up on time, you know, do those extra exercises that we asked them to do, actually eat the correct food, to be a professional in its perfect sense every single day, to consistently be the best that he can be.
Jens, it seems like you guys have two things to develop at Fnatic. A youth team to recruit people for early professionals and also like building a pension plan for long-term athletic development. So, okay, cool. Actually, I have one last question for you, and just to wrap it up, because I'm really enjoying this talk and I think we could go for hours, but unfortunately we have some constraints. So what I would like to ask you is to summarize what characterizes an esport player, and if you can make a parallel with free athletes or athletes and sportsmen in general.
I think hard work and passion for what you're doing. And I think basically within anything, if you want to be really, really, really good or be one of the best in the field that you're working in, you have to work extremely hard. And you have to be goal-oriented and just passionate every single day about getting better and working towards that. So I think that's one of the biggest similarities that we have with the regular sports. In sports, if you want to be good, you have to train harder than the others. You have to work harder than others. You have to be willing to improve and actually sort of understand, okay, these are areas that I have to improve and work towards those and be passionate about that every single day. And it's the same thing within esports. If you want to be the best within esports, you have to work your ass off every single day. You have to understand which areas that you have to improve on and be passionate and work towards that goal, even on the days that you feel tired and don't really want to do it. But I think those are sort of the similarities when it comes to professional esports player and a professional sportsman.
Yeah, totally agree with this. Consistency, putting in the work, and realizing when you have to lay low a little bit so that you can have more energy to come back stronger. That makes a lot of sense, yes. So on this, I would like to thank you very much for your time. This was super interesting for me. I'm sure people will love hearing about the inside of what is esport really about, and the fact that you guys now have like a high performance unit, that esport players are supported by health and fitness professionals. I think that's really interesting. So thanks again, Jens, and hopefully we'll talk again soon.
Yeah, thank you, Ken. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. It's been a good talk.
Thank you.